Good evening, viewers. An NYT article on NewsClick claiming that the media portal received funding from China to further their agenda has triggered a massive political storm. The issues resonated in Parliament as well. Today on NewsHour Agenda, we'll bring you some email exchanges the Times Now has managed to access that establish links between CPM and China. We were 6 months after the Chinese Galwan provocation. Prakash Karat, CPM leader and the former General Secretary of the party, was more worried about the anti-China sentiment spreading across India. In an email to US businessman Neville Roy Singham, on the 1st of January 2021, Karat has remarked on the detailed coverage of the CPIM by Chinese news website Wancha. He's appreciated the coverage, especially considering the anti as a border incident. It's worth noting that despite the loss of 20 brave soldiers in the Galwan skirmish, Karat's email demonstrates his empathy for China. He further mentions that the Indian government's restrictions on Chinese investments and imports will significantly impact and ultimately harm India more. Moving on, Neville Singham shared the article published by the Chinese website on the CPIM with Prakash Karat. The article highlighted how the Puducherry unit of the CPIM went the extra mile to sing paeans for Mao Zedong, who's considered a brutal dictator. It underlined the tweet of December 26, 2020, hailing Mao as a great symbol of revolution in China who helped defeat global fascism. The post was retweeted by the former Foreign Ministry spokesperson and now the Deputy Director General of the Department of Boundary and Ocean Affairs of China, Li Jianzhao. And you can see that on your screens there. That's not it, viewers. Times Now has also accessed another email exchange that throws more light on how China was using the Indian media portal to publish a Chinese propaganda film. We've accessed an email sent by Neville Roy Singham to NewsClick Editor-in-Chief Prabir Purkayastha. In this email, Singham talks about releasing a Chinese propaganda film with English subtitles globally. Let's now turn our focus to what happened in the Parliament, particularly the Rajya Sabha earlier today. The BJP reiterated its allegations against the opposition parties, especially the Congress and the CPM, for supporting anti-India campaigns run by NewsClick. Union Minister and leader of the Rajya Sabha, Piyush Goyal, tore into the opposition parties, including the Congress, asking them to come clean on the alleged links with China. The Congress, however, alleged that Union Minister and leader of the House, Piyush Goyal, used an unparliamentary word. Opposition bloc MPs have moved privilege motion against Goyal, alleging that he addressed the opposition leaders as traitors. The Union Minister has, however, denied using the term. Let's first listen in to what Piyush Goyal said exactly on the floor of the House.
ये बहुत ही गंभीर विषय है, ये बड़ा अजीब नाता है, बड़ा अजीब रिश्ता है। कांग्रेस और इनके सब ये घमंडिया जो गठबंधन है, ये घमंडिया गठबंधन सभी चाइनीज मीडिया को सपोर्ट करके भारत के खिलाफ षड्यंत्र कर रहे हैं। ये बड़ा गंभीर मामला है, इसके ऊपर सदन में चर्चा होनी चाहिए। ये सभी घमंडिया गठबंधन एक दूसरे को मदद करते हैं, ये लोग पैसा फंडिंग करते हैं और उस फंडिंग के माध्यम से भारत विरोधी ताकतें भारत के खिलाफ प्रोपेगेंडा करती है। और क्या रिश्ता है राहुल गांधी का, क्या रिश्ता है राहुल गांधी का कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी ऑफ चाइना के साथ, क्या है वो ये साइन किया है, ये सब तथ्य सामने आने चाहिए। देश को पता चलना चाहिए कि इनकी क्या मंशा है, ये भारत के साथ खड़े हैं या चाइना के साथ खड़े हैं। देश को पता चलना चाहिए कि इनके नेताओं की क्या प्रतिबद्धता है भारत के प्रति। ये
Congress's Jairam Ramesh has alleged that Goyal has addressed opposition as traitors. The Congress MP demanded nothing less than an apology from Piyush Goyal.
लीडर ऑफ द हाउस पीयूष गोयल ने एक अत्यंत असम्मानजनक और मैं कहूँगा उस पार्टी के लिए सबसे बड़ी गाली होगी जिसने दो प्रधानमंत्री कुर्बान किए देश से आतंकवाद से लड़ते, जिसके नेतृत्व में देश को आज़ादी मिली, उसको वो पार्टी जिसके मुखिया, जिसका संगठन जो उस समय अंग्रेजों की फौज में भर्ती होने का भारत वासियों को ऐलान करना। जब गांधी जी ने कहा कि अंग्रेजों भारत छोड़ो, उस समय उनके साथ
देखो देश के वो तो देश के आज़ादी का जो आज़ादी का लड़ाई में उनका कोई योगदान ही नहीं, वो हमें कैसे गद्दार कहेगा जिसका आज़ादी का लड़ाई में कोई योगदान नहीं। देश हितों का बात के लेकर अगर देश को मजबूत करना है, सारे समुदाय को लेकर, सारे तबका के लेकर आगे चलना है, तभी देश आगे चलेगा।
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Taking across to our guest, joining us with us is Sanju Verma, national spokesperson of the BJP. Ishkaran Bhandari, advocate, is with us. Advocate Kapil Madan is a political analyst joining us. Vivek Srivastava is also a political analyst with us. Sanjay Jha is an author. But let me first and foremost get into the issue by going across to Vivek Srivastava. Vivek Srivastava, here is a question that, primarily which has sparked off this entire debate. And the question is this.
Yeah.
I mean, at a very basic level, I'm sure you would have seen all these email exchanges. This has been reported for quite some time now. But why is the former General Secretary of the CPM, Mr. Karat, opposed to the anti-China moves of the government of India or the anti-China sentiment post-Galwan?
Yeah, see, first of all, I'll be very clear, and all along that I've been debating on your channels and other people also. See, the stand of the left and the left parties is very clear. It is not that we support China or we support Pakistan or we will be supporting Nepal against India. It is just that we feel that warmongering is wrong, and preferably if we talk with our neighbors, very much like a good relationship between like America and Canada have, that is better for the world. So that is the official stand. It doesn't mean that if some country attacks us or if some country...
So you don't think it's important to stand in solidarity with the government or the citizens of the country when there's external aggression in times of war, Mr. Vivek Srivastava? You would rather stand with the external aggressors? Come on.
No, we should. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No opposition party in this country is anti-national. All opposition parties stand with the government and the nation when it comes to wars. But before the war is there, let us all try that things should be solved out. Your soldiers are not, just like Gajar Mooli, they are not, radishes and carrots that you just send them out and just let them get cut. We are a poor nation. Pakistan is a poor nation. China has its own problems. Nepal is not doing well. War is not a solution. That doesn't mean that Prakash Karat or anyone who's from the left or the communist parties, we are anti-nationals. Number two, the funding to NewsClick has not come from China. I want to clarify it again. There is, Mr. Neville Roy Singham is an American national, studied in Harvard. He's a socialist. His father was a communist. If he was somebody who's promoting Chinese interests across the globe, the Americans would have been the first one to take an action against him. Have they taken it? Have they done so? So, everybody has their own business interests. The BJP and the RSS have got more than 140 affiliates sitting in Europe and America funding them. So, if you promote capitalism, if you promote American companies, if you promote European companies, if you promote that kind of an ideology, you're
it's very interesting.
But if you promote
it's very interesting that you mentioned that.
Marxism,
it's very interesting that you mentioned
wrong.
that, because I don't know if you've seen the New York Times article that you're talking about, Vivek Srivastava.
Yes.
But that New York Times article very specifically mentions that Neville Roy Singham shares office space and staff with Chinese propagandists, with those who are hell-bent upon talking about Chinese contribution to the world.
Okay.
That's the kind of people he's sharing office space and staff with. What more do you need to question which side he's leaning towards, sir? I'm not even getting into the funding or the complicated layers of who all he has dealt with and who he has spoken to, why he's pushing Chinese propaganda films. That is also a question that comes to mind. But at the end of the day, these are very serious questions, Vivek Srivastava, the kind of person that Mr. Karat is engaging with.
Yes. Now see, Madhav. No, see, absolutely not. Mr. Prakash is a very straight man, a very honest man, a patriotic man, and thinks a lot about the country and has major contributions to this nation. So let's not question his credibility, number one. Number two, you see, anybody who shares an office space with the Chinese, does it mean he becomes anti-Indian? After 1962 war, we never had a skirmish with China till the Modi government came into power. And let us, if you start towing a pro-American policy totally, if you, then the relationship with almost all the neighbors are bad. It's not only China, it's not only Pakistan, even Nepal, even Bhutan, even Bangladesh. Nobody's talking to you straight.
Okay.
So, let us not put it in black and white that anybody who talk, there are so many Indian business, so 10 seconds more. There are so many Indian businessmen, Madhav, today sitting in India right now, okay, contributing in major channels over here as shareholders who are trading with Chinese right now. and even Pakistanis. Are you trying to say that all these people are anti-nationals?
Well, let me put that question across to BJP. Sanju Verma can answer that question. And Sanju Verma, I also want to ask you a point. If there is so much of public information that the NYT has accessed, of course, this is a news report that has come in now. And of course, what has been stated by the government and by the Congress in the past in relation to NYT reports is a matter of an entirely different debate. But I'm going to ask you one simple question. If there was an investigation into NewsClick 2 years ago, why did that investigation, and if there was indeed this propaganda angle to it, why did that not come out in such great detail as the New York Times has now unearthed? Certainly our agencies are capable of investigating and bringing out these details.
That's a very interesting question. First, on a lighter note, thank God for that piece by New York Times. You know, for the first time in the longest time, I've heard Vivek Srivastava use the word capitalism repeatedly in that monologue of his. I thought a communist will never talk about capitalism. Anyway, on a more serious note, I think, let's be very clear. When the Enforcement Directorate in July 2021, charged NewsClick and its founder Prabir Purkayastha with tax evasion, concealment of income and money laundering, there was a hue and cry by the Congress leftist cabal saying, "Ye to democracy khatre mein hai." And the charges against Prabir Purkayastha have not been dissipated or eliminated. They continue to stand. The probe is on. As they say, justice delayed is justice denied, justice hurried is justice buried. The Enforcement Directorate is doing what it needs to do. So let us differentiate between the probe by the Enforcement Directorate under PMLA and the BJP, because let's not try and conflate issues. But today I will not allow the communists and Prakash Karat to get away, because I will just read out, and Times now has done an excellent expose. I will read out from your expose earlier in the evening. There is a letter dated 28th December 2020, and Times now has also tweeted about it today at 3:55 p.m. I have now lived in China for 18 months, deeply missing my comrades in India. I can tell you that the global working class is heartened by the recent victories in Kerala, blah, 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 says Neville Roy Singham to Prakash Karat, and then urges Prakash Karat to expand the communist footprint all over India. So far, so good. But then there is a response by Prakash Karat in a letter dated January 1st, 2021 to Neville Roy Singham, where after formal exchange of pleasantries, and this has also been tweeted by Times Now, after the formal exchange of pleasantries, Prakash Karat tells Neville Roy Singham that he is worried about the anti-China rhetoric that is taking shape in India after the border-related problems, and he's also worried about the import restrictions that the current government, read that as Modi government, has imposed on Chinese goods into India. I fail to understand what was Prakash Karat, a supposedly bona fide politician, doing, exchanging notes, taking diktats from a so-called American billionaire who has clearly said that he has strong communist linkages. And it does not end there. It does not end there. Let me finish. Let me finish. Let me finish. I did not heckle you. Madhav, can I finish? Madhav, I need my time. Thank you. Vivek, I did not heckle you, please.
No, I'm not heckling.
I will now tell you what is the concerning bit. The concerning bit is this. And this also is an expose by Times Now, which was done yesterday and today. That NewsClick, Prabir Purkayastha have been dictated, urged by Neville Roy Singham. He tells them, I will introduce you to a guy called Zhu, who is the editor-in-chief. And this was in 2020 at the height of COVID second wave. He says, I will introduce you to a guy called Zhu, who's the head of China Daily, which in turn is owned by the Chinese Communist Party. And you please come out with 3 series of articles explaining how China has done a far superior job compared to India.
Yes, we've discussed this yesterday. We've discussed this yesterday. This is out there in the public domain. I want to come back to the Chinese film and these fresh emails that we've pushed that have come out today, and in fact have been pushing for rather some kind of a Chinese propaganda. I think that is the larger question today, because that is also germane to what has transpired in Parliament. And I want Vivek Srivastava to answer those questions. Vivek Srivastava, why is Mr. Karat so concerned about the Indian government restricting investments and imports from China? Surely this has nothing to do with war.
No, now see, first of all, there is nothing wrong if Mr. Karat is talking to Mr. Singham. Mr. Singham is talking to everyone in the world. Okay, I mean he's an American businessman. He's doing business with the Chinese. He has got other business houses also. So I mean everybody talks to everyone else. Number one. So if you talk to Neville Roy Singham, that doesn't make you an anti-national. That's the first part. Second part is that yes, I mean Mr. Neville Roy Singham is from the communist background. His parentage was communist. He has a soft corner for the comrades. I have a soft corner for the communists all over the world. I feel yes, my ideology, my Marxism should spread peacefully via the democratic process, following the constitution across India. Let people, everybody become equal. Let there be equal wages. I also dream of it.
He had a
So does
lengthy
that make me an
monologue.
anti-national? So we have become. No, please.
So the
please,
content, it is, you know, Mr. Vivek Srivastava, you will say that there is nothing wrong in talking. Of course, there is maybe nothing wrong in talking. But look at the content of what is being discussed. The allegation of the BJP is that Chinese propaganda is being pushed. This is what the BJP is saying. That there is Chinese propaganda being pushed and somewhere willy-nilly, Mr. Karat appears to be falling for that. That's the charge that they are making.
I mean, there is... No, absolutely
You know, you
not.
had him speak for 8
Absolutely
minutes at the start of the
Everybody is
debate.
very mature
Now
over
he's
here,
again back
okay?
to a monologue.
We have communism with the Indian perspective. You have communism with the Cuban perspective. You have communism with the American perspective.
Can I
Then the Communist
respond in
Party of United States of
20
America
seconds,
also.
Madhav?
Everybody talks to everyone in the world. That's the first part. So I mean, it's being blown out of proportion irrationally.
This is not
NGO, I
fair.
mean, see, NewsClick is not a company. It is not a profit-making body. It is a company which is no profit, no loss.
Okay.
They have been in losses for the last 4 or 5 years.
will
Even the
respond to
basic
that,
expenses
please.
many times have not been met. That is the first part. So from here and there, donations are collected and they are trying to do something creative. I mean,
This is creative work. This is creative work, Sanju Verma. You're objecting to creative work. That's the charge of Vivek Srivastava. Please respond to him.
Okay.
Yes, it is creative.
You know,
work.
now he's spoken
I
enough.
stand for
You know,
the-
Madhav.
I
Okay,
stand for the
Madhav.
journalist.
You know, Vivek, we heard you.
Yeah.
You made your point. Please. You know, this is one of my favorite quotes. You know, the ultimate betrayal is not the betrayal by your friends. The ultimate betrayal is when you betray yourself for the values that you once stood for. And I will tell you why there is a problem. Yes, everybody talks to everybody. Yes, it's a global village. Yes, capitalism is not a dirty word. So what if Neville Roy Singham and Prakash Karat are exchanging letters beyond formal bonhomie but discussing internal security and import restriction related measures, which is certainly not acceptable. But what was Prabir Purkayastha, who you said is running a non-profit organization, what was NewsClick doing? Getting 38.04 crores of unaccounted money from Neville Roy Singham to peddle Chinese propaganda and say that the COVID virus never
What is
originated from the
unaccounted money?
Wuhan laboratory
Unaccounted
and that
money,
China
please
is doing a much superior
What do you mean
job
by unaccounted
compared to
money? Please
India
explain.
when it came
What
to
is
the
unaccounted
vaccination
money?
drive. That is propaganda.
No. What is
If you
unaccounted
say
money?
that China had nothing to do with the COVID virus,
No,
that
no,
is
no.
propaganda.
You are talking
If you say
contradictory
India
things.
did not have the world's
You are doing
largest and
contradictory
fastest
things. You're saying
vaccination
contradictory
drive,
things.
that is propaganda. If you
आप
say China did a far
contradictory
better
बातें बोल रहे
job,
हैं।
that is
Okay,
propaganda.
let me come in now. Let me bring another panelist. You know, somewhere or the other, Sanjay Jha. One second. Now, Mr. Srivastava, let me quickly bring in Sanjay Jha now. Another panelist. They've been waiting very patiently. Ishkaran is also with us, as is Kapil Madan. Sanjay Jha, the question is this: the question that the leader of the House in the Rajya Sabha today raises, Piyush Goyal, is that this is a clear sign of the kind of people that the India alliance is associated with. People who are talking in extremely dodgy terms, if I can put it very politely, at least in terms of, you know, issues which are very, very significant issues. What has happened in Galwan is just referred to as a border issue. You know, there are ways of, looking at a different problem, and certainly, of course, everyone has their own freedom of speech. But somewhere or the other, the BJP is saying that here is a clear-cut case of individuals who are not just engaged with foreigners, but engaged with pushing a foreign agenda, in this case, a Chinese agenda.
Madhav, good evening to you. It's good to be back on your program again. I will make just 3 very short and succinct points. Number one, the BJP has really fallen from wherever it was before. I mean, I can imagine their desperation. Today, they are quoting the New York Times. Ooh, this is going to be a blue moon night tonight. The same New York Times, when it calls Narendra Modi a dictator,
Why not?
Can I have no interruption,
You were
please,
clapping.
Madhav?
The New York
Otherwise,
Times was
Madhav,
abusing
will I
Prime
have
Minister
no
Modi,
interruption?
which
Can
is
you assure me?
Okay, Sanju, allow him to make his point. He has just started speaking. Let him make his
Can you
point. You
lower
can
the
always
feeder?
respond to him.
Because
And the
when
others
I'm
also who are
speaking,
coming in on this
I
debate.
don't want her jarring voice to interrupt me.
No, and
So
I don't
please
want you
lower
to
a feeder when I'm speaking because it disrupts my...
Okay, let's not get into a personal fight, please. I'm requesting both of you. Sanjay, make your point now.
Suspended variety,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah,
Number
yeah,
one.
Sanju Verma and Mr. Sanjay Jha, both of you,
You're still
please.
suspended.
Yes,
Yeah.
let Sanjay Jha make his point. Yeah.
Yeah. For the BJP, this is a fall from their lofty Himalayan heights. Both things they are quoting the New York Times. And I'm delighted to actually see this transformation because Madhav, you promised me you would not allow.
Yes, Sanju Verma, allow him to make his point now, please.
He's reaching a point of disgrace, and I'm not going to mince my words anymore. I'm going to be very upfront. Okay, so here I repeat it again, and I'm going to take more time, unfortunately, of the other panelists. The BJP today, quoting the New York Times, tells you that ultimately reality bites hard. And they should read what the New York Times has to say about Mr. Narendra Modi's authoritarianism and the hate politics his government has propagated. But here are 2 points the BJP, whether it's Piyush Goyal or Nirmala Sitharaman or Mr. Modi himself, in case he decides to speak, if he ever does, should answer. 2 questions. Can we know what the Chinese have actually invested in the PM CARES fund? Because I have some information here, which the BJP hasn't been able to contradict, that even companies like TikTok that they banned, OnePlus, Huawei, etc. have invested. So you have roughly 48 crores by Chinese companies in the PM CARES fund. Now we know why the PM CARES fund is so opaque and doesn't allow a public scrutiny.
What's the basis of this information, Sanjay Jha? What's the basis of this information?
Point number 2.
No, what's the basis? One second. Let's go one by one. Let's go one by one.
The reports, kindly Google it.
Okay, there are news reports. All right. You asked a question. Now let's get a response. Let's go one by one. Because we can't have a rambling debate. Let's go one by one. You made an important point.
I'm just wrapping up, Madhav. Give me 5 seconds.
I'm giving you. You've taken fair amount of time, sir. Let's get in a response.
I'm sorry. Half the time I was trying to tell you to stop the lady from interrupting me.
And I did stop her.
Give me 15 seconds.
I did stop her. Okay, 15 seconds. Complete your point in 15 seconds.
Yeah. Number 2, why is India running such a huge trade deficit under Narendra Modi's government with the Chinese when all the hyper rhetoric is something very masculine and very macho elsewhere? Yeah?
Okay.
Point number 3, last point. Modi himself gave a clean chit on the Galwan Valley issue to the Chinese. The Chinese have exploited that, saying we never entered Indian territory, and therefore the diplomatic disaster continues to haunt India because of Mr. Modi.
Okay. Sanju Verma, quick response to that, please. Yes.
Now let me respond to the suspended variety. And, Madhav, I will not be kind to this man. At least I just have a jarring voice. Have you seen yourself in the mirror? Have you looked at yourself?
No personal comments. Please, let's not reduce this debate to this. Please.
Yes.
This is much too serious an issue to get into a personal fight. Both of you, please. Let us not do this. Let us not do this, or else we'll be forced to go across to other panelists. Let's not do this. This is not fair on either of our panelists or our viewers. I think their time is more precious.
Absolutely.
Let's at least respect that.
I agree with you, Madhav.
Let's at least respect that, please. There's certain red lines that should not be crossed. Sanju Verma and Sanjay Jha, let's not go there. Sanju Verma, now respond to the serious questions that he has raised. He has raised some serious questions. Please respond to them.
And I agree, Madhav, I will not violate the protocol, and I hope nobody else will.
Yes, go ahead.
Madhav.
Yeah.
Madhav, I have tremendous respect for you, but if somebody sits on your shows on Times Now every day and starts every debate by abusing the Prime Minister, by abusing Narendra Modi, if he sits here and gives me a lecture on protocol, I will not take his words kindly. You are the last person to lecture on protocol and morality, so keep quiet. Now let me answer that question about trade deficit. When Atal Bihari Vajpayee relinquished the Prime Minister's chair, our trade deficit with China was $1.34 billion. Under the Congress-led UPA from 2004 to 2014, the trade deficit went up from 1.34 to $38 billion. That's a 2,614% increase. As we speak today, in the last 9 years of the Modi government, the trade deficit has risen on an average from $38 billion to $73 billion, which is only a 9 to 92% increase versus a 2,600% plus increase under the 10 years of UPA. And one last point, 10 seconds on the last point. Those who talk about Chinese investments into India, Madhav, can I make my point?
Yeah, one second. Vivek Srivastava, I've allowed her to speak. Now, let's not all start talking over each other, please. There's no sense in having a debate if everyone's just going to shout over another person. Please allow her to make her point. I'm going to come to all you gentlemen. There are 2 panelists who've incidentally not even spoken. You're eating into their time.
Thank you. Madhav, for everyone who says that there's, blatant Chinese investments into India, your audience needs to know this since it's a serious debate. in the last 3 years, the top 5 big foreign direct investment related investments into India have come from Singapore, Mauritius, United States of America, the United Arab Emirates and Netherlands.
Okay.
And China is nowhere close to being even amongst our top 10 FDI investors. Sanjay Jha can only smirk and smile, and he can do nothing more because he never has facts to corroborate his record.
All right, let me just come in now. Let me just come in now. One question that I must ask, and let me bring in Kapil Madan on this point. Kapil Madan, today the tweet of Mr. Jairam Ramesh, I'm just reading out his tweet. He says that India parties walked out of Rajya Sabha today for the rest of the day because the continued refusal of Modi government to allow an immediate discussion on Manipur, the continued refusal of Leader of House Piyush Goyal to apologize for his highly objectionable and completely unacceptable remarks that he made against leaders of the India parties. And in fact, Piyush Goyal also is on record to say that he's used an unparliamentary word. Please expunge it from the records. And he's also said that there was no use of the word traitor in the Rajya Sabha. So that's the allegation coming in from the ruling party, that the very complaint itself is wrong because the word traitor has been allegedly not been used. Kapil Madan.
So Madhav, I was very patiently listening to all the panelists, and I hope I will not be interrupted. So the opening part of the debate, we had a discussion on whether any news agency was pushing any Chinese propaganda or propaganda of our enemy country. So I just want to remind our viewers here. Now, BJP and Sanju Verma is taking a moral high ground, but they forget a DRDO scientist, namely Kulkar, was found spying for Pakistan, and admittedly there are ample reports that suggest that the man had links with and he was an active member of RSS. Now I don't know and why and on what grounds they come and talk so highly about these kind of things. Now let me come to this Chinese investment. Now let me tell you, at present there are about 18 companies in India that has Chinese investment, FDI, that has pumped in from China, including Paytm, wherein Mr. Anil Ambani is also an investor, or he was an investor, and a Chinese company was also an investor. Now the fact remains, if someone is being if any entity is being invested.
Kapil Madan, there's a difference between investing in propaganda machinery, is there not? Are we talking about normal commerce and e-commerce? There are questions raised about Chinese companies and their role in national security. I'm not even going down that road. Here we're talking about pushing a certain propaganda. Can you please come to that point? And you've not even answered my question on what happened in the Rajya Sabha today.
Now, Madhav, let me answer. You also mentioned, and in fact, Sanju also mentioned that there was an ED investigation 2 years ago. Now, if there is an ED investigation, they have taken 2 years to investigate. After 2 years of investigation, they can't come to a conclusion with an evidence that, there was some Chinese propaganda, there was money laundering, or there was anything that was done to harm the interest of India. No, I am saying what your ED is not able to say and what your ED is not able to justify. What I am saying, your ED does not have any credibility.
Okay, let Ishkaran come in now. One second, Sanju Verma, just a second. Let Ishkaran come in. Let Ishkaran come in. One second, let Ishkaran come in. He hasn't yet come in on this debate. Ishkaran, the question being raised by Kapil Madan is that if ED could not establish it, then why are we having this debate? That's a question that I also raised right at the start of this debate. But I want Ishkaran to come in on this point. Ishkaran.
Madhav, I'm speaking after 30 minutes. I hope nobody will interrupt me now. I've been listening very patiently to everybody. Firstly, I think it's either despicable or dumb to compare India, China with US, Canada. US and Canada have never had a war between them. US and Canada are the closest of allies. India, China, have to say the least, have had a war, have had Galwan just recently, and there is a disputed border and constant aggression at the border. So please, from China to US, you don't even, if you are a citizen of US, you don't even need a visa. It's a free-flowing similar territory. So let us be very clear on what the realities or the ground realities are before we compare China and India with US and Canada. Second aspect, which is very important in this case, is it is not about investment. If Chinese company invested in some company which was spying on the Indian government, which was spying on you or me, which was trying to derail some segment of Indian economy, that would be being a traitor. So if money comes and you discuss the agenda of how Galwan is to be presented, how COVID is to be done, how the tensions between China and India, how favorable reports are to be done, or how if you go through a laundry list of news items NewsClick has done, from Rafale to God knows what else is to be raised, then that is substantially different from an investment. But one point I will definitely say, is it only going to be exposed, or is BJP going to arrest people? This is not a case of speech. It is not criticism of the government. It is not criticism of the policy of the government. It is not also a case where you have done criticism which is not warranted. It is a case completely of national security. So 2 years ago, if ED had this data, and I believe ED has more data than New York Times, so then why has it not been acted upon? That is a question BJP must answer.
Okay, very interesting to see Ishkaran question the BJP, but that is, there are 2 points I want to make over here. You can, of course, and you must answer the question that has been raised by Ishkaran, but the New York Times, very interestingly, Sanju Verma, and this is perhaps the reason why we have not seen anything further, the New York Times, the same article also says that the ED has not offered any proof for the last 2 years. That's also a very interesting observation.
Okay. Ishkaran raised a valid point, and I will just...
a lot of money in PM Cares.
Can you ask this man to keep quiet? I don't want to...
Sanjay, Ishkaran and I have both asked a question of Sanju Verma. Let her respond, and then you can rebut that if you want to.
Thank you. Madhav, I will just say this, that it's a developing story. It would be extremely, non-judicious on my part to make a comment, but I can assure Ishkaran this. He's raised a valid question, but you need to know, Ishkaran, and I'm sure you're aware of this, that when it comes to money laundering cases, the ED's conviction rate is 96.4%. And don't forget that be it Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi or Mehul Choksi, while they are still to be extradited to India, they have lost their case at the highest level within the United Kingdom.
Okay, Sanju Verma, I think that statistic is being disputed, and I'm going to allow the... One second, Sanju Verma, just 1 second, because there are lawyers on the panel and there are political analysts. They're all disputing you on the figure that you just quoted. I'm going to allow Ishkaran a chance to rebut you first. 1 second, since Ishkaran, of course, follows matters. He's a lawyer. He follows these aspects in court. Yeah.
No, 2 short points. I'm not doubting Sanju Verma's statistics. ED's conviction rate is not the question. My point is twofold. ED, if it has a conviction rate, it's a very good thing. It should have it. But the reality is 2 short points. One, this now emerges to be a national security issue, not only a money laundering issue. And for that, the short point is these people, I hope after 5 days, 10 days, doesn't matter, 2-3 days, here and doesn't matter, but will be arrested and we will have a closure of this case. Otherwise, it's just exposure, which has no value.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Will the arrest happen is his question. That's a question he is asking Sanju Verma, of whoever is concerned.
Who is this man with his jarring voice interjecting every now and then, Madhav?
Okay, you can respond to him. You can respond to Ishkaran.
You don't interject these days.
1 second. Kapil Madan, I've asked her to respond to what Ishkaran just said. Can you just hold on for a minute? Yeah.
I, with full responsibility and confidence, assure Ishkaran that since this is no longer about money laundering, but as he very rightfully said, it has raised national security concerns. There will be arrests in due course, but I will not give a timeline to that, but it will be soon.
No timeline yet.
Please, Madhav, let me finish. I've been interrupted way too often.
You have spoken the maximum also on the show.
Yes, I know that. Kapil Madan raised some queries on, this fellow was a spy linked to RSS. When the Congress talks about spying, I'm just reminded of Nambi Narayanan, who was arrested in 1994 when the chief minister in Kerala was a Congressee. And even the central government was that of Narasimha Rao of the Congress, who was the Prime Minister. Thank God for the D.K. Jain Commission, which gave a clean chit to Nambi Narayanan, and he gave him a Padma Bhushan in 2019.
I want Sanjay Jha to respond to that. How can a question be raised on a track record when the ISRO spy scandal happened under a Congress regime, both at the state and the center? Quick response, Sanjay Jha.
Madhav, 1 minute. I'll answer that. But just before that, I need to tell you, I mentioned a few Chinese companies in PM Cares. There are Chinese invested companies like Ola, Oyo. You have Paytm invested big time into PM Cares fund. जरा ये कहाँ गया ये पैसा, जरा बताइएगा, हम लोग इंतजार कर रहे हैं. Now let me
But
answer your question.
Sanjay Jha, one second. Sanjay Jha, the question
Now
is
let
this.
me answer your
The question is there can be Chinese companies functioning out of India. The question is whether they're pushing an agenda. I hope there's a slight difference between the two that you see.
Excuse me, Madhav, one of the reasons why TikTok is going through a scrutiny in America is simply because of the fear of surveillance. So let's not try and treat it as a mere commercial investment. Anyway, my larger point, her response to the accusation that Kapil Madan has made absolutely correctly based on reports which are out in the open is what happened during the Congress time. Well, in that case, let me tell the lady this. There was another BJP leader who was involved with spying from Pakistan. And this also happened very much in the last couple of years. So please do not give lectures on national security after Manipur. Don't even utter the word national security. After Manipur, don't utter the word national security. You have abandoned it. You have shamed India. You have compromised our borders. You have compromised our territorial integrity. You have divided our own society. You have no right to talk on national security. Apologize to the people of India. Maafi मांगिए भारत के लोगों से.
Okay. Last word to Ishkaran. Ishkaran wants to come in on this. Yes.
सुरक्षा का भोगी मत चलाइए.
1 second. Sanjay Jha, Sanju Verma, lowering both your faders. We're almost out of time. Yeah.
One short point. Sanjay Jha may be suspended, but he's a true congressman. When he starts speaking, he harms his own case. He gave example of TikTok. The FBI or CBI director said India has banned TikTok. We should ban it too. So please, at least do not give examples where Indian government has taken action.
Sanjay Jha, quick 10-second response.
पैसे कहाँ से आए भैया?
Okay. Follow the money, says Sanjay Jha. Follow the money, says Sanjay Jha. Follow the money is what the ED is doing. In this particular case, what is the action that we are expecting to see? We'll have to leave it there for the moment. And certainly, of course, what happens in Parliament is also going to be very important because very clearly this has led to a deadlock in the Rajya Sabha where there are 3 more days of the monsoon session left. Will the deadlock be ended? Will there be a peaceful settlement of this issue? Will there be an apology as has been demanded by the Congress, or will the words be expunged? What will be the solution arrived at in the Rajya Sabha is also something that we'll be watching out for. Sanju Verma, Ishkaran Bhandari, Advocate Kapil Madan, Vivek Srivastava and Sanjay Jha. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us this evening.